Hello, strangers. But it's funny, because you look kind of familiar. With the holidays coming up, everyone I know is in full swing Christmas shopping. But be careful out there. And to drive home that point, here's story number 109.
My girlfriend spends a lot of time on Facebook Marketplace. I used to give her crap about it, but once she showed me the steep discounts available there, I was all for it. Sure, some of it's junk, or stuff you really wouldn't want to buy used, but some of it was pretty high quality. And if you could overlook a little nick there, a dent here, it was well worth the hassle of driving out to Eastern BFE to pick it up. We outfitted damn near our whole apartment with it, and even now she scours that site, always on the lookout for a gift or for some friend in dire need of a love seat. It was on one of these deep dives where she saw a post from an account she hadn't seen before. The account was relatively new, only a week or so old. The guy didn't spend much time on pleasantries. His post on the community marketplace page was simple. He said he'd just moved to town for a new job and had secured an apartment for him, his wife, and their newborn. With the costs of the move and the new addition to his family, and being so new to town he didn't yet have friends on which he could rely, he was soliciting for furniture, any and all that could be had as close to free as possible. My girlfriend's a bit of a softie for the underdog. The thought of being new to a strange town, not knowing anyone, and with something as fragile as his little family sounded, she immediately thought of our old sofa. We'd relegated it to the office, but it was too big for the space, a remnant of our own mad scramble to get furniture when we were first starting out. It wasn't fancy, but it was clean, in good condition, and neither of us smoke or own any pets, and surely it beat sitting on the floor. So she clicked reply on the man's post, letting him know that she was happy to hand it off to him free of charge. About 20 seconds later, he responded, not on the original post, but with a PM to her account. She clicked it open, and the message read in full, "Where do you live?" That took her aback a bit, but she responded, giving the name of our town, the same one he'd just moved to, then hit send. Then it occurred to her. Maybe he was asking because he wouldn't have gas or a large enough vehicle to pick it up from any distance. She added that she had a truck and no problem dropping it off. Hit send again. Immediately, the man responded with a bunch of little emojis, little ones wearing party hats and blowing noisemakers, and little praying hands. Their cheery yellow set her mind at ease. She had guessed correctly. The man sent another message, reiterating that he'd just moved to town, and indeed didn't have a truck, so her offer was gladly accepted, and he provided the address, as well as tagging on that he was eager to make new friends like her, followed by the wink emoji. Ugh. She looked at his account. While the relationship status indeed said married, there wasn't a single picture on the account, nor was the wife's account tagged or listed. And this is where I come in, because she wandered into the office, laptop in hand, and plunked herself down on the very sofa in question to ask for my help. She hit all the points above, and when I looked at the little messages, that toneless, "Where do you live?" the "Make new friends like her," that little wink, I was certain the help she was wanting was for me to validate the vibes were off and to just ghost him. But I was wrong. Her good heart wasn't going to let a man's baby and wife sit on the floor just because he was bad at texting. She instead asked if I could drive the sofa over to the man's apartment, thus avoiding the uncomfortableness but ensuring that the good deed was done. And when she looks at me with that firm, it's the right thing to do look, yeah, I'm not winning that argument. So I caved, told her I'd run the thing over the next day after work. But I didn't tell her I planned to make a stop on the way. And I did, over to my friend Thomas's house. Thomas is my closest friend. While he's definitely not in the shape he was linebacking for our team at state, he's still a fireplug, wide as he is tall. People don't tend to mess with someone as big as him. Maybe Mr. New Guy in the neighborhood was a creep. Maybe he was just terrible over text. That same weird feeling my girl felt had crawled up my spine as well, enough to bring reinforcements. One guy alone may not paint the picture this guy might need, but two, and one of them built like a brick outhouse, well, that should do the trick. Operative word there, should. I picked Thomas up and we drove over. Already my carefully constructed plan hit a snag. Thomas wasn't up to his usual hale and hearty self. He told me about some party the night before and how much he'd had to drink. He wouldn't take off his sunglasses. That was a sure sign he'd closed the bar out. Great. Wouldn't be much help. But I figured, hey, maybe the sunglasses add to his mystique. And all he has to do is stand there and look big, right? We got to the apartment. We got the sofa out and to the elevator, only to see, of course, one of those taped-on signs scribbled in Sharpie. Maintenance called, use stairs. Maintenance misspelled, of course again. And the guy? His place was on the top floor, of course a third time. My girl had already given him a rough drop-off time, so it fell to me and Thomas to muscle hump the damn sofa up the stairwell to make it up there in time. I smashed my hand pretty good against the door jamb. Thomas made plenty of groans and grunts as he angled his end around. But we made it, and shoved it down the hall, ready to be done with it. We stopped it short of the door, figuring another angle job to get it into the apartment proper, and I walked around my bud's huffing form, leaned on the sofa catching his breath, to knock on the door. As I knocked, I clocked the loud music playing inside, having only a moment to remember the guy was meant to have a newborn. Why would that music be so... The door opened, and from the apartment, the space was filled with the largest dude I'd ever seen outside of the locker room. Absolute lurch-looking unit of a guy, just spattered in carroty freckles. He looked down at me. I must have looked like a child trying to sell chocolate bars for a school fundraiser. I took a step back, but smiled, and asked if I had the right apartment. The music inside cut as the guy gave his name. Yup, same one as on the post. That sudden quiet after the pounding bass made me feel a little off-kilter, but I just shrugged and told him Alyssa, my girl, had sent me with the couch. The man didn't respond. A bit of nerves fired through my veins. I added that it was a good thing. What with the elevator being broken, there was no way she'd been able to have managed the couch, even with his help. The man seemed to absorb this, then, without a word, stepped inside, motioning me with a nod to drag the thing in. No offer to help, just silent observation. I'm not a small man. I've faced down bubbas with weight and height on me before, but my something's up alarm was firing full blast, and it was also telling me that turning and running or refusing to help was not a good idea. Maybe hysterical. My girl's face flashed through my mind, that righteous do-gooder face. I kicked myself inwardly. I'd already done the hard part, getting the damn thing up here. What was 10 or 20 more feet? The things we do for love, I thought. Thomas was looking at me for the next move, so I just shrugged as I turned, pulled up my side, and Thomas his, before we awkward walked that thing into the dark apartment. I was walking backwards, towards the living room, where the only light in the apartment seemed to come from. Light, and, as I drew closer, voices. And not wifey poo and bouncing baby voices. It could have been a TV, but it didn't sound like one. Those voices sounded live, in-house audience style. That bad feeling was flooding me now, but the way we were now situated, that damn sofa was blocking me in from the entrance, with Thomas right behind. And behind Thomas, Mr. New Guy, towering over even him, following us silently down the hall. If I rapided now, tried to cut and run, I had 3 shiny new obstacles to trip me up at best. As it was then and there, the best play I had was to remain calm, play it off like my heart wasn't beginning to drum, and approach this like an animal. Show no fear, it won't attack. Light spilled over me as I continued to pull the sofa out of the cramped hallway and into the light. Before turning, I heard a sniff, then a mutter. So before I even turned around, I knew what I was going to see. More dudes. And sure enough, there were 4 of them. Looks like Mr. New Guy hadn't been lying when he told my girl how eager he was to make new friends. Like him, they stood, silently looking at me, cutting their eyes between me and, as he emerged from the hallway, Thomas. If he looked worn out in the stairwell, well, Thomas was looking green in this dim light. I knew behind those Terminator-style sunglasses, the sweat was slicking off his temples in a way that made his skin look cheesy, wet. At least they managed to cover his eyes, as they surely widened when he took in the assembled crew awaiting us in the living room. No, not awaiting us, awaiting my girl. That little factoid added a fire to my nerves, and the tide in my gut went from growing fear to a kindling rage. With that, I nodded at Thomas to drop his end of the sofa, right where he stood, only a few steps into the living room, but far enough away that Mr. New Guy had come from behind him, exiting that narrow hallway leading back to the front door of the apartment. I turned. I felt my chin jut out as I scanned the room, keeping my movements slick and smooth, flavored my voice with a friendliness I didn't taste, said, "Well, it's not much, but I hope it helps you out." The whole time, my head was on a swivel, looking to see any quick moves in my direction. If one of them made a move, well, God help me. A total of 5 guys with 2 larger than me, and my only backup currently having a small heart attack behind me. If they decided to start something, I was toast. But that was only if I gave them an opening, showed a spark of the panic that was welling up in my throat, making me fight the urge to take a big gulp like a cartoon character. I guess the forced cheerfulness, and the fact that I was not a 5'5", 150-pound girl, had them feeling just as caught off guard as I was. I leaned into that, smiling extra big. Yeah, it's a good town when it comes to stuff like this. Always got a lot of free stuff, and the local mom and pop's not bad for prices either. Someone coughed to my left. It took everything in me not to jump, but I didn't. I just clapped my hands like I was dusting them off and started sidling back along the couch, putting it between me and the convention of hard-looking dudes watching me mutely. Thomas, thank God, wasn't so slow that he didn't pick up on my act. He straightened, gave a chuckle, and thanked them for the workout with that sort of, you know how it is kind of demeanor, and he retreated back down the hall. I was a step away from it when Mr. New Guy stepped out from where he'd leaned up against the wall, partially blocking my escape route. My heart felt cold. just ice all the way through my chest. I had to tear my eyes up into his, feeling like a prize idiot, wondering how much of me would be left for the cops to save. That is, once Thomas managed to call them. And Mr. New Guy spoke. His voice was low, gravelly, deep Southern po-white trash accented, as he said, "Let Alyssa know we're grateful." And he smiled, this thick, wide smile. That anger in me nearly snapped my hand out to knock that smile off his big, moony face. But I didn't. It must have shown in my eyes a moment, because he chuckled, then cut his eyes over and away, stepping back into the wall as he did. The first time I'd come down that hallway, I'd been lugging a sofa I'd just brought up 3 flights. But giving that room my back and walking, not sprinting, down the hallway to where Thomas was holding open the door, it felt like it took hours. When I got home, Alyssa was tense, her own nerves obvious. She'd been waiting. As the clock had slid past the time she'd figured I'd have dropped off the sofa and been done, she was pacing. When I came into the apartment, she was on me in a flash, hugging me, asking me what happened. Was I all right? Boy, why was I so sweaty? No time for that. I told her outright to log into her account and block the guy. She opened the app on her phone, which was open to the same marketplace community page she frequented, the same one that had started this whole mess. She scrolled and then said, His post was deleted. My messages. Then she paused, then held up her phone for me to see. The messages were still there, like a dead moth suspended in a shadow box, but the name was different. Facebook user. The account was gone.
No good deed goes unpunished. Be careful out there, friends. If you'd like to reach out, email and socials are in the description. Interacting with the like, comment, and subscribe features does something, allegedly. And otherwise, we'll meet again next Tuesday. Stay strange, stay safe, and take care, strangers.